Durango TV News brings you Healthy Living in the Four Corners, featuring experts on wellness, nutrition, and lifestyle to keep you healthy and fit to enjoy all the region has to offer. Brought to you by San Juan Regional Medical Center in Farmington. Thanks for watching Healthy Living in the Four Corners. I'm Deborah Uroda. More than 800,000 people die in the United States every year from a heart attack, and on average, about half those victims had early warning signs but ignored them. San Juan Regional Medical Center in Farmington wants you to understand what those symptoms look like, and when you or someone in your vicinity begins to experience them, call an ambulance immediately. Survive. Don't drive. Barbara Charles, the Cardiologist Service Line Director and Chest Pain Center Coordinator at San Juan Regional Medical, is on a mission to ensure that everyone in the community knows and responds to the early signs and symptoms of a heart attack. She recently was honored by the Society of Cardiovascular Patient Care as the Early Heart Attack Care Person of the Year. Healthy Living recently talked to Barbara about her campaign.
What's happening in a heart attack is, these tiny arteries that supply oxygen-rich blood flow to the heart muscle, for some reason are narrowed or blocked. Sometimes that's because there's a blood clot in one of those narrowings. Sometimes it's because over our lifetime we've built up, fatty plaques, and now it's gotten to a point where there's no oxygenated rich blood going to that heart muscle. If it goes too long without that blood supply, it's going to start to die. And once heart muscle dies, that's not something that we can reverse. Oftentimes we see patients wait too long, they ignore the signs and symptoms, or they're unaware of them. And what happens when people ignore these signs or symptoms is their presentation, when they're having a major cardiac event, is delayed. And the longer time that goes by, the more damage to the heart muscle. Sometimes we worry about the financial burden that might come with calling an ambulance. I can tell you that the burden in your health, if you don't get treatment sooner versus later, and either your survival or your quality of life after an event is going to have a much greater financial burden than the cost of that ambulance. What the ambulance brings is trained medical personnel with medications, life-saving, that they can start there while they're loading you up into the ambulance and get things going before you even get to the hospital. We always hear about the classic one, which is chest pain, that crushing, burning pain. I feel like an elephant sitting on my chest is probably a classic sign. Not everybody has not everybody has that as their number one sign. Other things like nausea or vomiting, shortness of breath, anxiety, feeling of fullness, excessive fatigue, all those would be other signs or symptoms to not ignore. And if you start kind of putting, I'm feeling nauseated and I feel really full, I'm really anxious, gosh, I've been so tired over the last 2 days, the more they add up, those are some more hints that we have. Anytime that pain is radiating from the chest to the arm or the jaw, that's a pretty good sign. And if we recognize these signs and symptoms, then hopefully we're not driving ourselves, we're calling 911, and we're getting to the hospital sooner versus later. The sooner we can treat what's happening, the less damage to the heart muscle, which means better outcomes, improved quality of life, and increases chance of survival.
If you'd like to learn more about the early signs and symptoms of a heart attack, log on to sanjuanregional.com/heartsmatter. I'm Deborah Uroda for Healthy Living in the Four Corners. This edition of Healthy Living in the Four Corners has been brought to you by San Juan Regional Medical Center in Farmington.